Good afternoon. Welcome to Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. Mr. Clerk, could you open the roll and take roll for the members?
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. A couple of preliminary matters here. First off, I would like to refer Senator Boysko's Senate Bill 411 and her Senate Bill 412 to the Companion Animal Subcommittee. And I don't believe I need a motion for that, do I, Mr. Jackson? Okay, so Senator Boysko's two bills will go to companion animals. I've spoken with the chairman of Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources, and he has advised me that his two bills, Senate Bill 457 for rural charging and Senate Bill 465 for the Virginia Land Conservation Foundation, should be passed by for the week, and we'll hear those next week. Can I have a motion on that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on that. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, those two bills are by for the go by for the week. We'll hear those next week. At this point in time, let's see if there's any other preliminary matters here. Yes, let's start out with Senator Favola. Your subcommittee report from, I believe, 4 bills for the Companion Animal Subcommittee. Yes, if you could make your report, and we'll deal with those as full committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First bill the committee heard was Senate Bill 11. Senator Favola was the patron. There was a committee amendment, and what the amendment did is it provided that a violation of a felony offense of animal cruelty or any prohibition or restriction imposed by the sentencing court pursuant to the bill is a Class 1 misdemeanor, and all animals under the court's order shall be seized and forfeited, and provides that the court shall order that any animal possessed or owned by such person may be sold by a local governing body, if not a companion animal or equine. This passed 3-0, and again, the intent was to give the court an option to sort of prohibit ownership of an animal if, in fact, a finding of cruelty was actually determined.
Okay, and Senator Favola, could you report the amendment?
Sure. Okay. I ask that the committee adopt the amendment.
I have a motion and a second to accept the committee amendment, the subcommittee amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, no. All opposed, no. All right, the bill as amended is before us. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
just as a reminder to the audience, this bill was fully heard in subcommittee, and we don't take public testimony on bills that have come through the subcommittee. And so with that,
the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is that the recommendation from the subcommittee is that the committee report the bill.
All right. We have a recommendation to report. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to pass the bill as amended. Mr. Clerk, would you open the rolls? Vote aye if you're in favor. Vote nay if you're opposed.
Senator Hackworth for Senator Mokai. Ayes 13, noes 1.
Ayes 13, noes 1. The bill reports. Senator Favola, your next bill from the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was Senate Bill 31. Patron was Senator Stanley, and it had to do with a companion animal surgical sterilization program and fund established. Senator Stanley presented testimony saying how important it was that we do sterilize eligible cats and dogs, and he wanted to set up a fund to pay for it. And the money was going to come from a $50 per ton tax on pet food. So $50 fee. A $50 fee per ton on pet food. The committee adopted that amendment. We removed distributors from the $50 surcharge. So, Mr. Chairman, the amendment was to remove distributors from the $50 surcharge. I ask that the committee adopt the amendment.
Is there a second? The motion is to adopt the committee amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the bill as amended is before us, and
Mr. Chairman, the recommendation
is to go to finance. So
the
the
recommend-
motion would be to report
And
and refer
re-refer.
to finance. So moved. We have a motion to report and refer to finance. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 9, no 6.
All right. Ayes 9, nays 6. The bill reports. Senator Favola, your third bill.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 93, patron was Senator Stanley. And this allows any locality to establish an animal cruelty registry for public access on the local government's website or on the website of the local police department. The bill provides that such registry may include the names and relevant information of persons convicted of certain felony offenses for animal cruelty, and that a person would remain on the registry for 15 years. The bill directs that all costs relating to a locality's animal cruelty registry shall be borne by the locality. There were no amendments to this bill. The subcommittee recommendation is that the committee report the bill.
Are there any questions from committee members?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Senator Williams-Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in this registry, are folks' home addresses or work addresses included in the publicly available information?
Mr. Chairman, and I will ask Senator Stanley if I'm incorrect. My understanding is that the locality can determine what information would actually be on the registry. So there's no prohibition about what would be on the registry. We're just giving localities the authority to establish a registry. Senator Stanley, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator by saying, yes, that's correct. And it would be nothing more than what we find usually on our public access for court records as well. It just transfers those court records that are already publicly accessible onto a website database for the locality to make it easier for people who breed dogs, our releasing agencies, our pounds, to make determinations as to whether someone may be suitable for adoption.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chair.
Williams-Graves.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with what's on court records. Does that include people's addresses, Mr. Chair? Does that include their home addresses?
Senator Favola.
I will defer to Senator Stanley. I don't read court records.
Senator Stanley? Excuse me, Senator Stanley, is that a question you can?
Mr. Chair, well, what we have in our court systems, say you go to your county court and you look up in circuit court and you look up a name, the name comes up with the charge and the disposition. But all court records have publicly accessible information within those files, which include on the warrants usually the address of the person itself who's been charged. But on the websites themselves, they don't necessarily have the addresses.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Williams-Graves. Senator Hashmi, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron. If the individual who has registered in one locality moves to another locality, will they be required to re-register? How does that work if one locality establishes and maintains the registry, but another locality does not? Would the individual have to tell the locality in which he has registered that he or she is moving to another location?
Mr. Chairman, I answer the senator by saying, no, this is not like the sex offender registry. This does not require the defendant to register. What this provides for is the localities, law enforcement or court system can determine for themselves to create a registry where those who have been convicted in their county on these charges, the most heinous animal cruelty charges, to maintain that list that can be accessible by the public. If a person, say, was convicted of that charge in Franklin County and moved to Henrico County, that person would not be forced to register. Henrico would not, if they did not maintain a list, would put him or her on the list. And even if they did maintain a list, that person, because of their moving, would not show up on that list. What it is that each locality has the ability at their own cost to create a list like this where those that are in the public can determine if someone's been convicted of a heinous, horrible crime of cruelty towards animals. That was, because it's public record anyway, it's just kind of winnowing it down to where, in that subject alone, there's an accessible database which also can be then interfaced with other localities that choose to do so, and if they have compacts or agreements, to do so as well.
Senator Hashmi, is that anything else? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Hackworth.
Can I ask the patron a question?
You may, sir.
So, Mr. Chair, Senator Stanley, you know, I feel like sometimes we wreck on both sides of the road, and if I'm reading this correct, it says not less than 15 years after the violation. So if you make it on this infamous list, you have to stay on that at least 15 years. Is that correct?
Senator Stanley.
Mr. Chairman, I would answer the gentleman by saying yes, but what the gentleman may not understand, if he's not a lawyer and not involved in law enforcement, is
Thank
that
God.
when you're convicted of something, you remain on a list in the public square in the courthouse forever.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Senator Hackworth, any further questions?
Yes, follow up, Mr. Chair. So it says here that he can ask inclusion of the register provided he has no additional felony convictions of an offense. So I don't know, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if we're not being a little maybe reactionary or extreme in this. I understand the intent, and I appreciate that, and I think everyone on this committee definitely is against animal cruelty, but I feel like that this could create a list that could cause individuals that may be charged with this negative in their community, and it could, even if they have repented of their sins and said that, have gone forth and done correct since then.
Senator Stanley, you wish to respond?
Mr. Chairman, I have a sneaking fear that perhaps there's some cats missing around the Hackworth plantation farm. Maybe there should be an investigation. But let us not forget, and maybe some of you recall, there was a gentleman whose wife had two very beautiful, wonderful dogs, Labradors, and he killed them. And he was charged with the felony abuse of those dogs. He killed them because he was jealous of them. He lied and accused people and described people who did not kill these dogs of killing them, and caused a great chaotic time in my county of Franklin. He was later convicted. This person did this to these dogs because he wanted to get back at his wife. Now, I don't really have any sympathy for, if you can't tell already, I don't have any sympathy for persons like that. And I don't think it's a stigma, and I hope he repents. But the crime is the crime, and it lasts for a lifetime. It is not expunged. And quite frankly, what we have seen, studies have shown over and over again, Mr. Chairman, that people that would do these things to a dog will do them to a human. So it also provides an available tool for law enforcement as well, in terms of investigations and other things like that. It is merely a list of publishing the public record so that Otherwise, you have releasing agencies, dog pounds, who are overloaded with dogs and cats right now. And people are coming in and wanting to adopt a dog or a cat, where they can quickly reference this list to see if that person is suitable for adoption of a dog or a cat. And believe me, there are those that abuse dogs and cats and then go in there and try to adopt them again. And we can't let that happen. Hoarding of dogs and cats occurs. These are things that we need and we should have tools in the toolbox to avoid. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
We
Chair.
have another question from
Just speaking to the bill.
Senator Williams Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From conversation from my colleague, Senator Perry, I think for me, it's been helpful that we're not talking about charges or allegations. We are talking about convictions. And so once somebody is convicted of something, they're somewhere. And this registry simply seeks to collect all of that information as it pertains to cruelty to animals in one space. And so that was helpful to me. Hopefully it'll be helpful to other people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Williams Graves.
One last question.
One last question. Senator Hackworth.
Mr. Chair, Senator Stanley, this is permissive, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I answer the gentleman by saying yes, it's permissive, it's local. The law enforcement, I've talked to many law enforcement agencies at the local level, sheriff's department, prosecutors who would like to do something like this. They coordinate it with their county board of supervisors or however they want to do that. And how they publish it on whatever website is then up to them as well. It has no fiscal impact to the state, and it's permissive.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Any further questions? All right,
no.
It came out of subcommittee 3-0. Can I have a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, the motion is that we report the bill.
Motion is to report the bill. We have a second. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? Vote aye if you're in favor, nay if you're against.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill reports. Senator Favola, you have one more.
One more.
From the subcommittee.
Yeah, Senate Bill 266, the patron was Senator DeSteffe. And what this required was animal control officers would be required to take additional training. So the training would increase from 15 hours to 24 hours every 3 years for all control officers and deputy control officers employed by a locality. We thought that was reasonable, and the subcommittee reported it without amendment 3-0, and the recommendation is that the full committee report the bill.
All right, any questions for Senator Favola? We have a motion on the bill, please.
I move that we report the bill.
We have a motion to report. Do we have a second? Okay. Excuse me, Senator French, you have a question?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Senator Flova. So we had 15 hours. What determined that rate? And then why do we add 9 more hours? It looks like to me 15 hours could be done what I would think would be in 2 business days, 7.5 hours. But the 9 is not going to be. So it's going to require localities to take more than 1 day for those extra 9 hours. So where did the figure of 9 more hours come? And is there some thing that we just don't have enough training for these animal officers?
Mr. Chairman, I would answer, again, this is every 3 years, first off, so it's not a burden. And the point that was made to the committee was to get these additional hours is very easy. There are a lot of online courses. There are a lot of animal-related nonprofit groups that offer courses that individuals can take. So the conclusion was, I actually thought we should require more training and it should be more structured. I was one of 3 votes, and the determination was this was not a burden with all the virtual learning opportunities out there. This was reasonable, and that was the conclusion of the committee.
Thank you, Senator Favola. And I will add, Senator French, that since Senator Stanley has been on agriculture, conservation, and natural resources, there are so many more laws that people need to be aware of that additional training is required. All right, we had a motion and a second on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it's a question.
Oh, we have a question from Senator Hashmi.
Oh, I'm Senator Perry.
Oh, excuse me, I thought Senator Perry. You have a,
And Senator Hashmi.
well, she was looking.
She's the much better looking senator, closer to you.
All right, Senator Perry.
Thank
have a
you.
question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question. I understand requiring training and ongoing training for animal control officers. I think that's important for reasons that were raised: new laws, new bills, making sure people stay up to date. I think that's important. But my question is, I think, similar to Senator French's, which is just, why are we adding additional requirements? Was there a concern? I've worked with a number of animal control officers over the years, very closely. And so I guess my question is, what was the rationale that they need more training than the training they already have every 3 years?
Senator
What was the
Favola.
rationale for that?
That's a great question, Senator Perry. The rationale was best practices keep changing. There's always more information to learn, and perhaps there could be a sharing of ideas. The short answer is there was no definitive evidence presented that said this additional training is needed. The presentation was, it would be nice if these officers had additional training to learn these other things. But the committee was left with the impression that it was really no cost to the animal control officer, and it was very easy because everything was online.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to report the bill.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just speak to that really
You have
quickly.
a follow-up?
It's really just, I think, speaking to the bill, but my concern is that, animal control officers, these are public servants. We often have a lack of people who are willing or able to serve in these jobs. They are often very busy and called on for a number of responsibilities. I know up in Loudoun County, they help run our animal shelter. They respond out to calls related to cats, dogs, raccoons in the road. So they have a number of things to do. If you're in a car accident, they will come, secure your dog from your house. If there's a domestic violence incident, they are often called out to those incidents. If there are pets in the home that need to be taken care of. So they do a wide variety of things. Not just deal with stray cats or stray dogs or something along those lines. So I guess my concern is just if there is a reason that we feel like animal control officers need more training, then certainly I would support more training. I think in general training is a very good thing for most of us, myself included, in any number of areas. I'm just concerned about what the rationale is for 1, 9 hours, or 2. Why we're just adding on to the responsibilities they already have, unless we have a justifiable reason, and then certainly I may be in support of that.
Oh, sure.
Senator Favola, please.
I was just going to say, and it is probably, you would understand this, I believe we could add additional training through the regulatory process or whatever licensing process. I'm not sure we need an additional law, but that's the way the committee voted.
And Senator Perry, if usually in law enforcement, I know in juvenile court, juvenile detention, any number of law enforcement facilities, the training requirement is 40 hours per year. So this is very, actually under what that normal 40-year requirement is. But I think, with the fact that we are paying special attention to companion animals these days, and so therefore, it is, I think it's imperative that we make sure that their training is up to date. Senator Hashmi, your turn now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just echo some of the concerns that Senator Perry has raised. I'm wondering about I understand that some of this training will be provided online, but it may be the case that requiring this number of hours actually would indicate that animal control officers may have to travel elsewhere to get the training. It could have a fiscal impact on our localities if it's mandatory with travel and registration. This may be an unfunded mandate that we are asking our localities to take on. And like Senator Perry, I didn't hear an articulation as to the justification for the increase in the number of hours. So those are some of the concerns that I have.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second, but we also have the patron of the bill here who may want to shed some light on the concerns that some of our members have on this bill. Senator DeSteffe.
If I may, I actually didn't hear all of the concerns, but I can address the little bit of concerns I did hear. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I'm happy to answer questions to provide more details on this.
Yeah.
But what this bill does is increases their continuing education credits, and where it brings it to, it's very easy for them to get it. They can get it with their firearms requalification. They can get it with their driver training. They can do it with CIT hours. All of this counts towards it. This was brought on behalf of the State Veterinarian Association. We have support from Richmond, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Spotsylvania, Campbell County, Staunton, Suffolk, Augusta, Shenandoah, Powhatan, Dinwiddie, and about 45 other jurisdictions that have called and requested this. And part of the reason they want to do this is to help document the hours. And the state veterinarian provides all of this training online via video, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours where folks can jump online via video and take the training, and then they get a certificate for the training they've taken. So they've requested this. And it's based on the fact that animal control officer basic training has gone from 92 hours to 120 hours. And there's a lot of legislation that we pass through here that the state vet puts online and does video training on, that they'd like to make sure the animal control officers are up to date and up to speed on our regulations that we're putting onto this body. But I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
And Senator DeSteffe, to my knowledge, 120 hours is the standard training requirement for many quasi-law enforcement officers, probation officers, whatever, 120. Certainly police officers go through many, multiple weeks of training and then have, similar kinds of, I think, 40-hour requirements every year to continue their training. So this seems to fit within that. With that, are there any further questions?
Senator, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Perry.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me. Senator French.
I would just like to say I've had the Sheriff's Association in my office and veterinarians. None of them, I asked them to any bills that were on the floor that we need to know about, especially in agriculture. None of them said that, our animal control officers need more training. And two, we have 15 hours so some of these new things for people who have been officers for a long time can be introduced during those 15 hours, I would think. I just feel like it's responsible to keep these officers out in the field doing the job that they're there instead of having them doing further education.
Okay. Thank you. And Senator Perry. Senator Perry, you have a question?
I have one question for the patron.
Oh, wait. Senator Perry has the floor.
That's okay. Senator Favola can ask first.
Okay. Senator Favola.
Okay, thank you. Senator DeSteffe, when you made your presentation, I believe, or I don't remember if you gave a rationale for moving it to 24 as opposed to moving it to 20 or 25. And that was a question that came up from the committee. And then my other question is, could this be required through a regulatory process and not necessarily through statute?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Favola, I'll answer your question by saying yes, the state veterinarian supports this. The animal control let me make sure I get this right, the entire board from across the state, the Animal Control Association, the State Veterinarian, the Virginia Animal Control Association, and the Virginia Animal Control Supervisors Association are the ones who the board got together and said, we would like this, and here's why. With the additional laws we pass on companion animals and how long you can chain an animal up and everything else we do, they said we need more time on this. And further, a lot of jurisdictions are not putting stuff like trailer driving, which is 4 hours. And again, we're asking for 8 hours a year or 24 hours every 3 years. CIT and all of this training is free. The state veterinarian puts it out on video for free. So
In
this is at
reality-
the request of them, and I'm happy to, I don't know if they're here today. I think the way it blew through the last time, I didn't think we had any concerns.
I didn't either, Senator Stepp, but basically what you're saying is we're going from 5 hours a year to 8 hours a year. Is that
Mr.
correct?
Chairman, that's correct.
That's a full day of training so that somebody would be compensated for that full 8 hours of training that could be arranged for them, and they wouldn't be going to training for 5 hours and then trying to get out into the field and do something with the other 3 hours of their day. Seems to make mathematical and sense to me. And
I think the state vet is here. You
Yeah.
might want to ask them to come up if this is their bill. It might be important.
is Senator Stepp, is the state vet here?
Well, here we go.
All right.
The state vet, Mr. Chair.
Hi, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good afternoon. Charlie Broadus, State Veterinarian with VDAX. The administration does not have a position on the bill. We fully support and appreciate all the difficulties that animal control officers have and certainly support anything we can do to support them in their jobs, but we do not have a position on it.
Thank you very much. And I don't know that I've ever seen a professional law enforcement person only have to have 8 hours per year. I think that's, if this bill passes, it's still probably extraordinarily low. But we have a motion and a second on the bill. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll, please? Vote yea if you're in favor, nay if you are opposed.
Ayes 6, noes 9.
Ayes 6, nays 9. The bill fails to report.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. While I'm up here, do you want me to go through the other bills, or?
I believe we have Senator Pillion first, and then we can get to you, Senator DeStaff. Thank you.
That's fine.
Good try, Bill.
Senator Pillion, could you present your bill? Thanks for being here.
I certainly missed being on that subcommittee, though. I would like to make mention of that. I'd like to draw your attention.
There's still time, Senator.
No, there's not. There is no time. I'd like to draw your attention to Senate Bill 616. And, Mr. Chairman, there are several amendments that are clarifying in nature before you that they should have available.
Thank you so much. Staff, could you report the amendments?
Mr. Chair, at the beginning of line 188, we are inserting "and forestal." Line 189, introduced after farmland, insert "and forest land." At the beginning of line 192, insert "and forest land." Line 194, after farmland, insert "and forest land." Line 223, after techniques, strike "and." Line 224, introduced after matters, insert semicolon and Romanet 5, assistance in locating conservation programs aimed at improving water quality. And line 258, after program, insert or century forest program.
Senator Pillion, could you would you say that that these amendments are clarifying and technical in nature?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would say both those things.
All right. Do we have a motion to accept the amendments? We have a motion and a second to accept the amendments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The bill as amended is before us. Senator Pillion.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this bill primarily does three things. First, it transfers the Office of Farmland Preservation its powers and duties and reporting requirements to the Department of Forestry. Second, the bill renames it to the Office of Working Lands and Preservation. And finally, the bill moves the Agriculture Vitality Fund, which receives funds from the Agriculture Specialty License Plates, to the Department of Forestry. Currently, there is no one entity solely focused on conservation of working lands. Farmland owners and forest land owners are frequently one and the same, and the resources needed to protect these lands have much overlap. Combining the VDAC's Office of Farmland Preservation with the Department of Forestry farmland conservation work would allow very similar programming to be streamlined and offered to landowners in a more efficient and effective manner. Furthermore, forestry has become a proven leader in the area of forest land conservation. Forestry can hold conservation easements, but VDACs cannot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to mention Martha Moore from Farm Bureau is here, should there be any technical questions.
Are there questions for Senator Pillion?
Move to report.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to report the bill. Hold on, let's ask for some comment from the audience. Anyone here in favor of the bill who would like to speak?
If anyone online would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand.
Okay, Ms. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Martha Moore, Virginia Farm Bureau. We appreciate Senator Pillion and his leadership in bringing this issue forward and would appreciate your support and happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Corey Connors with the Virginia Forestry Association. We support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Riddell with the Virginia Cattlemen Association. We fully support this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Brad Copenhaver representing the Agribusiness Council. We support the bill too. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Mr. Clerk, would you open the rolls? What's that? Actually the proper motion here, Senator Favola, if I could have you make that, is to report and refer to finance.
Yeah, I move that we report and re-refer the bill to finance.
We have a first and a motion and a second to report the bill and refer to finance. Would you open the rolls, please? Vote aye if you're in favor, nay if you're opposed.
Senator Hackworth for Senator Molokai.
Senator Stewart, did he have a?
Ayes 14, no 0.
Ayes 14, noes 0. The bill reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He told me on his way out the door to vote for him, but I don't know whether that qualifies. If you'd like me to ask the vote for him, I will do so. She said yes.
Okay, so can we change that to 15? He did give his proxy.
His vote will be noted, sir.
All right. Thank you. Next up, we have Senator DeSteff. Which of your bills would you like us to take up next?
Mr. Chairman, let's go with the, hopefully we'll try to go with an easy one. I thought that last one would be pretty easy, but clearly I was wrong. Let's try Senate Bill 267, Wetlands Board's Permit Approval.
Turn your attention to Senate Bill 267. Senator DeSteff, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, so this bill basically, it changes the standard for the approval of a wetlands permit application from 3 members to 5 members of the Wetland Board, or on a 4 or 7 member Wetland Board to a simple majority. The reason for that, Mr. Chairman, is we have some jurisdictions that they have a hard time getting all of their members there and voting, and then some jurisdictions Well, frankly, the individuals who sit on the board are the experts, and they have to abstain from voting on it. So they may get a quorum, but you've got one or two people on some of these small boards that have to abstain because they worked on the application in their day job, and then you don't have enough folks to vote for it. So that's all this bill does, and I hope it's the will of the body to push this one forward.
All right. Senator DeSteff, do we have any questions for Senator DeSteff on Senate Bill 267? All right. No questions from the panel. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
If anyone online would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the bill?
If anyone online would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
All right. Please come to the mic. Introduce yourself.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jay Ford with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We certainly understand the concerns that have been raised by the senator, but we think dropping the threshold of public participation is not the right answer. If you have difficulties with people being conflicted on the boards, the answer is not to make it easier for large, impactful projects to move forward. In some instances, as this bill contemplates, with two people taking a look at the project, Virginia is already facing significant losses of wetlands in the face of climate impacts. Those habitats are some of our best frontline solutions to climate change in the Commonwealth. Lowering the threshold and eyeballs that are on these projects simply puts them at a higher degree of risk. We think this is a time when more people in our community should be paying attention to what's happening with these wetlands projects. They have impacts on all adjacent projects, so we would encourage you all to not support this legislation. Thank you.
Senator Hashmi, do you have a question for the
Yes,
the gentleman who was
for the gentleman, and I would ask the gentleman if, because of the recent Sackett decision by the Supreme Court, does it make it even more essential that we have appropriate expertise and a more thoughtful consideration process around our wetlands?
Yeah, Senator and Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. The answer is absolutely. The Sackett decision has really, in many ways, just muddied the water with local boards in terms of what should and should not be considered, and that's something that's being worked out across the state and with key agencies. But at this time, like I've said, we're already heading in the wrong direction. More eyeballs on the process is always the right answer. I think there are probably 0 times in history when making boards smaller led to a better environmental outcome. So we would encourage you all to not take that step.
Thank you. Next up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, my name is Mary Carson Stiff. I'm the Executive Director of Wetlands Watch. We are also not in favor of this bill and want to reiterate some of the climate stressors, just to provide some staggering statistics for you all. These are state statistics. With climate change, if we don't do something to protect our existing wetlands, we're looking at 89% total loss of our tidal wetlands in Virginia and 51% of our non-tidal wetlands law in Virginia. So just want to provide that staggering perspective. We agree with everything that Mr. Ford has said and just want to reiterate that we are asking citizens serving on Wetlands Board to play an extremely important role in this regulatory space. We want to encourage consensus and meeting participation. We believe that this bill would tell board members that they could miss a meeting because the votes would go forward with as few as 2 members present. This is not the standard we should be setting for our local wetlands boards for all the reasons that have been stated. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Next up, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Nathan Thompson, James River Association, we oppose the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club, and we oppose this bill.
Mr. Chair, Pat Calvert, Virginia Conservation Network, we also oppose the bill. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
You may close.
if I may,
You may
I
close,
think I'd like
Senator
to take
Staff.
this by for the week because I think I have a solution that might make everybody happy on this one. Our problem is right now on some of the wetlands boards where you have 2 members and not a majority, we have had some projects that literally have gone, not come in front of the board for 2 or 3 years. So I think I've got another approach to solve this one.
Senator DeStaff, as a courtesy, I think this is the first time you've asked for a continuance on the bill, if you will. So could I have a motion to pass the bill by for the week?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to pass the bill by for the week. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The bill will be heard again next week. Thank you, Senator DeStaff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think I'll get with the, if the groups can contact me, we'll get with them and sit down. I think I have a way to get folks on board with that.
Yeah. I believe you have some other matters?
Mr. Chair, with my record so far, I'm not sure if I want to continue with any other matters. I may want to take everything I've got by for the
Senator
day.
DeStaff, we have all had those days.
Mr. Chairman, let's, I draw your attention to Senate Bill 665. And, Mr. Chairman, what this bill does is it takes the Southwest Regional Recreational Authority, which we know as Spearhead Trails, and the way they currently work under DEQ, this gives them the ability to come under DEQ in a more collaborative process, which will help with their annual trail specifications and standards, and really a plan for ongoing maintenance activities, which we know on this one helps sustain the environment when they properly maintain the trails. And I hope we have a couple of speakers on this one.
All right. There you are. Could you introduce yourself, please, although you need no introduction to this group?
Mr. Chairman, Steve Pike, current interim director at Southwest Regional Recreation Authority. We support this bill. I do believe that this will allow us to work very closely with DEQ in establishing the certain standards and specifications out of the utmost respect to the natural outdoor recreational opportunities that we have in Southwest Virginia. It also affords us an opportunity to increase training working under DEQ, and I think in some of the emergency maintenance matters that come up, I think it will make our trail maintenance response more efficient in working, so therefore we support this.
Mr. Pike, does this, will this deal with all-terrain vehicles and any number of two-wheel vehicles or whatever being able to use the trail under the direction of DEQ?
So it sets the standards in the development of these trail systems. We would follow under the standards with DEQ, and as far as stream crossings and other environmental standards that are required as far as the development and maintenance of the system.
And okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just one last follow-up. When these trails are properly maintained, it eliminates runoff into the streams. So as long as these are properly maintained within DEQ standards, it eliminates runoff, and this allows them working closer with DEQ to be able to provide that maintenance.
Okay, very good. Are there questions for Mr. Pike or for Senator DeStaff from the committee? Any questions? Senator Hosmy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if Director Rolban might speak about DEQ's involvement in the bill.
Thank you, Senator Marsden and committee.
Dr. Rolban.
DEQ supports this position. We do not have, we're comfortable with this position. We don't have a formal position, so we have no position at this time by half the administration, but we've met with everybody involved, and we support the concept, and we provide in our current regulations as well as in our manual that's coming out a program for standards and specs. The concept is to have people that are intimately familiar with the projects do the actual review on the spot. And they have to do that. They have to go through 90 hours of training. You're talking about 15 and 24. We require 90 for this, so it's a little more extensive. And this way we could get a better result on the ground.
Okay. Thank you so much, Director Rolband. Is there anyone else here who wishes to, are there any questions first from the panel? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill?
If anyone online would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
If anyone online would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Please come forward, introduce yourself.
Mr. Chair, my name is Pat Coward. I'm representing Virginia Conservation Network. Also online, I believe you should have Sharon Smith of the Clinch Coalition, who is especially familiar with this project. So DEQ has documented significant water quality impacts and numerous potential violations of Virginia's existing erosion sediment control and stormwater management programs associated with this off-road vehicle trail by the Southwest Regional Recreation Authority. Despite those findings, this bill proposes a pathway to allow the SRRA to assume more responsibility for its own compliance with those very laws rather than undergoing rigorous permitting review through independent regulatory authorities for individual projects. This bill would also create a precedent allowing off-road vehicle trails systems elsewhere in the Commonwealth, which carry significant, well-documented water quality risks, and to follow a less stringent form of environmental oversight. So this bill, we request, be rejected by the subcommittee.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club, and we also oppose this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there's one person online to speak. Sharon, you may unmute, and please make sure your camera is on.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I don't, okay, excuse me.
Please make sure your camera is turned on.
Thank you. I apologize. This is my first time testifying before a committee. My name is Sharon Fisher. I reside in the 6th Senatorial District, and I'm with the Clinch Coalition. In relation to Virginia's erosion and sediment control and stormwater management laws, Virginia Department of Environmental Quality has documented significant water quality impacts and numerous potential violations with the off-road vehicle trail construction that is undertaken by the Southwest Regional Recreation Authority. Despite these findings, this bill proposes to allow SRRA to assume more responsibility for their own compliance rather than undergoing rigorous permitting review for individual projects. I'll reiterate what Mr. Calvert said, that this sets a bad precedent all across the system, and I respectfully request this bill be rejected by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the bill in opposition? All right, any further questions
Mr.
of
Chairman,
the patron?
If I may,
Senator Steff,
just
if you'd
one
like to
last
close.
word on this. So I consulted with Director Rolband, and he's right. In the past, there were problems with the trails, and because of lack of maintenance and because of, I don't want to say lack of training, but they go from 1 hour of training to 90 hours of training. You go from issues in the past where, since Colonel Pike has taken over now as a director there, they've not had these issues. So with proper training and proper execution on this, they've resolved these issues, and they've gone from problems to an approach that goes to 90 hours of training to eliminate those issues and educate everybody on this. So I understand what they are talking about in the past. That was when they had 1 hour of training on this. Now under Colonel Pike's leadership and 90 hours of training, working hand in hand with DEQ, that'll help resolve the issues of the past, and that's kind of what we want to do. We want to train and educate to ensure that we do everything right in the future. And this is a perfect example of how we can do that. And Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any more questions or pull up our Director of DEQ to help explain further, but this is a good thing that we're educating and bringing people in and training them to fix problems of the past. And I think everybody should want to support this.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked the patron. It appears the amending of 62.1-44.15:31 is that the Department of Transportation shall submit standards and specifications for its conduct of land disturbing activities to DEQ for approval, and it's a 60-day cycle. This merely allows the Southwest Regional Recreational Authority, it may, but it's not compelled to follow that. It creates another alternative, but not a compulsion. It's not a compulsion like the Department of Transportation, right?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's correct, and I'm getting the nod from the Director of DEQ to say, Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, that is actually correct.
Further question.
Okay. Senator Stanley.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd ask the gentleman, it appears to me that some people, I guess, on the that may have opposed this bill either online or in this committee today are concerned that DEQ won't do its job in approving land disturbing activities or stormwater management by the Southwest Regional Recreation Authority?
Senator DeSaff.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, if I may, I think the issue that the individuals are addressing today isn't the maintenance as much as what we're trying to do here. They don't necessarily care to have these four-wheelers and two-wheelers on the trails. What this does is this helps make sure that if that's going to continue, we do it in an environmentally friendly way, making sure that DEQ is tied at the hip with the Southwestern the Trails Authority, and they do it together in an environmentally conscious way to make sure that there's a lot of oversight between the two. And going from 1 hour of training to 90 hours of training.
Mr. Chair.
Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Favola.
I'm ready for a motion. Somebody may have a.
We have a question down here. Senator Hackworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and speak to the bill. Although I had several of these trails in my old district, I think I just have one county now that has one of these trails, and I have been on these trails, and I appreciate the patron bringing this before the committee. One of the problems that we've had in the past was, if you've ever been to the Great Southwest, we have a lot of mountainous terrain. And so one of the things that would happen is if you had a significant rainfall, some of the trails would get ruts, and they would actually rut out some of the trails and would create dangers for some of the riders and participants on the trail. And so when we brought this to the attention of DEQ, because it was a process that they had to go through, sometimes it would take weeks to try to get a plan that was approved to basically take the gravel or the debris that had washed out of the trail to the side of the road and put it back into the rut. That was all that was asking, was just, can we? And they said, well, no, you have to go through the permit process to do that. So what this does is this allows a more extensive training to spearhead personnel to know what those regulations is, to work with DEQ, to be able to maintain those trails, not create new trails. I think that's one of the problems that we have here, is all they're trying to do is to maintain these trails to where it is better for the environment, because the sediment and some of the debris would go into some of the streams or something like that. So this provides training, 90 hours of training to help them work hand in hand with DEQ to be able to make these trails safer, and it's a good bill. I would support the bill.
Thank you, Senator Hackworth. Question, Senator DeStaff, is it's your understanding, and perhaps Colonel Pike would be the best one to answer it, is this about controlling all-terrain types of vehicles to be able to attract more visitors, tourism to the spearhead trails, improving the economy of Southwest Virginia, and doing it in a environmentally conscious way? Is that what you would describe as the purpose of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, properly maintaining the trails and doing it in an expeditious manner will stop the runoff issues that they're having now. So instead of going through it's like this, say that there's runoff on something. Instead of waiting to go through the permit cycle and take 90 or 120 days to get a permit to fix it, they're now able to fix it immediately while they're ensuring that they're doing it in the appropriate way, hand in hand with DEQ. So I think it would tremendously help the environment by allowing something like this. The spearhead trails themselves does help bring and attract a tremendous amount of individuals to Southwest for a tourism type environment.
Okay, thank you, Senator DeStaff. Any further questions before I take Senator Favola's motion? Anyone? Senator Favola.
Senator DeStaff, I think I understand what you're trying to do. I just don't have enough comfort level to give you the okay to do it. I actually think we should probably set up a task force to work with stakeholders to figure out what exactly a soil erosion plan should contain and how it should be implemented and how quickly and probably what kind of training is actually needed. I can't bring myself to a comfort level on this, but I want you to know that I read your bill. I know what you're trying to do. I think there's another pathway forward. But having said that, I am going to move that we PBI the bill.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to PBI the bill. The clerk will open the roll. All those in favor of the motion, please record their votes aye. Those opposed, no.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, nays 5. The bill fails to report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Mr. Clerk, could you change his vote, please?
Your vote will be noted.
Okay. All right. Senator DeStaff, do you have another bill?
Mr. Chairman, we've got one more bill.
All right. I'm rooting for you.
Trying.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is Senate Bill 286, which we talked about last week, which ensures that public notice is provided electronically to any business or residence or civic organization upon request to be added to the Commission's public notice email list for any project under consideration for a permit issued by the Commission. Mr. Chairman, the MRC has been running this and doing this, and we appreciate them doing it, and we'd like to codify so they continue to do this wonderful program.
All right. Thank you, Senator DeStaff. Are there any questions from members of the committee? All right. Okay. And the motion would be to the bill is before us as amended last week, so it's still in that status. We accepted the
Mr. Chairman,
amendment.
that's correct.
And so the bill is before us. Do we have a motion on the bill? We have a motion and a second to report the bill. The clerk will open the roll. All those in favor of the motion, please record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Oh,
Mr. Chairman,
we had public
from
comment last week on this bill,
Did you have a
and this
question?
was to bring it back in front of the committee.
There's a substitute motion, Mr.
We've already opened the rolls.
You didn't. Mr. Chair, you didn't hear her.
What?
You didn't hear her. She asked for a substitute motion.
I didn't. Who asked for it?
It failed anyways. It failed anyways.
Could the clerk please strike the roll? Senator Perry, you have a substitute motion.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead.
Substitute motion to PBI the bill.
I'm sorry?
Substitute motion to PBI the bill.
I'm sorry.
PBI the bill.
Substitute motion is to PBI the bill.
Mr. Chair, I move the previous question.
Senator Obenshain moves the previous question. I believe that takes precedence. So we're back to the original motion. And Whether to call the previous question?
The vote is on whether to call the previous question.
Okay. So can we have a vote to call the previous question, which was to report the bill?
So if that
Mr. Chair?
vote fails,
Then we
then
go to the
let's go
PBI. That's right.
Your motion.
Okay. All right. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll?
Previous question.
This is to, previous question is, usually it's a unanimous vote for previous question, is it not?
No, it's majority. It's majority. Just simple majority.
Can we get a point of order, Mr. Chair, and understand what we're voting on here? Because I'm thoroughly confused.
Mr. Clerk, could you report on the vote that we're currently
Mr. Chair, the previous question would be a vote to go to the original question, which was, the motion was to report. If this passes, then we will go to the previous question, which is to report. If it fails, we will go with the secondary question, which is to pass by indefinitely.
Okay. And so what we have just voted on is to
Ayes
to call
10,
the
noes
previous
5.
question, and could you report the vote, please?
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, noes 5. We revert to the previous question,
Which was to report
which was to report the bill.
Okay.
All right. There we go. We have a first and a second on reporting Senate Bill 268.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stewart.
I know we carried this over, but I feel compelled to speak to this. Again, this is an issue that VMRC is doing already voluntarily. And if you codify this, I think that this will actually develop a cause of action which could be problematic for VMRC and water quality improvement projects moving forward. So I hope that we will not report this bill and we'll vote against it.
All right. Since Senator Stewart has brought up VMRC, is there anyone here from VMRC who could comment on this? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Rachel Peabody. I'm the Director of Policy at the VMRC. We don't have a position on this, but I'm happy to answer any technical questions.
Do you, in your opinion, does Senator Stewart's concern, could potentially create a problem for VMRC?
Provided that if there was an issue with our IT system, if the email system didn't work and it didn't go out, there could be a potential for appeal. That could be a possibility.
Okay, thank you. All right, the bill is before us. We have a first and a second to report the bill. The clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 6, noes 9.
Ayes
Mr.
6.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for your
Noes
time.
9. The bill fails to report. Thank you, Senator DeStaff. All right, I believe we have in the queue Senator Rome and your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a substitute I'd like to pass out to the committee here.
I'm sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a substitute to hand out to the committee.
Okay. Could you, Clerk, could you pass out the substitute? And could I have a motion on the substitute, please?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to report the substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
As opposed, no.
Wait, did you just report the substitute? Okay. I'll take that. That's fine.
All right. Staff, could you report, since you feel like it's more line amendments, could you report the line amendments? Oh, it's pretty hefty? Okay, that's good. Senator Rome, could you explain the amendments to your bill?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of my former committee. The one day we served together was the greatest day in Virginia history. I just want to tell you that. Basically, here's essentially this bill implements a grandfather date, redefines who is affected by the bill's provisions, and changes the requirements of those affected to curtail stormwater runoff. So here we go. The amendments begin with a grandfather date of July 1st, 2024, such that site plans submitted before then will not be subject to the provisions of the bill. Number 2, it strikes the term enterprise data center operation and in its place includes the term high electrical demand facilities. Third, it provides a definition of those facilities reading as high electrical demand facility means a facility with a dedicated substation connected to a transmission line of at least 69 kilovolts. The change in term and definition was done in order to ensure that this bill was focused on stormwater management and not singling out just a particular industry. Fourth and finally, this substitution strikes, quote, to infiltrate, evaporate, or reuse the predicted stormwater runoff volume that exceeds the stormwater runoff volume experienced at such site prior to such land disturbance, and in its place, it inserts the following, quote, to Romanet 1, detain the water quality volume and to release it over 48 hours. Romanet 2, detain and release over a 24-hour period the expected rainfall resulting from the 1-year, 24-hour storm. And Romanet 3, reduce the allowable peak flow rate resulting from the 1.5-year, 2-year, and 10-year 24-hour storms to a level that is less than or equal to the peak flow rate from the site, assuming it was in a good forested condition, achieved through multiplication of the forested peak flow rate by a reduction factor that is equal to the runoff volume from the site when it was in a good forested condition divided by the runoff volume from the site in its proposed condition, and shall be exempt from any flow rate capacity and velocity requirements for natural or man-made channels as defined in any regulations promulgated pursuant to this section or any ordinances adopted pursuant to section 62.1-44.15:27 or 62.1-44.15:33. This implementation, the implementation of these standards over what was previously drafted indicates a change in the strategy to control stormwater runoff. Instead of focusing on the volume of the runoff, we have now shifted to the flow rate of such runoff and reducing its ability to destroy the ecology and hydrology of any given environment. And Mr. Chairman, if any of this sounds familiar, it's because the language mirrors what Fairfax County is actually doing in its stormwater management policy. In fact, they've been authorized by the state to do this a long time. Every locality has. Fairfax was the only one that took them up on it. So having been implemented since 2005 on this, since then all localities have been allowed to do this, and we decided to use existing precedent because this body works on precedent. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will give you the very more brief summation of what the bill does in its entirety at this point. Basically, we want to protect the water.
If we might save some time here, it's the intent to get this and the other data center bills to the JLARC study that's going on. So with your permission, I know you want to present your information on the bill, but we have a busy docket, and I would, as we spoke earlier, I think you were fine with this bill going forward to the, as amended, going forward to the, to be passed by for the, or excuse me, to be continued to next year for the JLARC studies.
So there's a few things, Mr. Chair, with that. Number one, I've got constituents who drove in all the way from Gainesville today to testify on behalf of this, and we would like their comments to basically help direct JLARC in the direction that they're going to. So I would love for them to be able to speak to the bill today.
Could you do that in under 3 minutes?
Come on up. And we also, I'll note we have some folks online as well.
Okay, and then I'll have a motion to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bill Wright. I'm from Gainesville in Prince William County, which has become the epicenter for high electric demand facility development. Similar legislation was proposed last year. Since that time, the need for it has become more acute. The Virginia Data Center Reform Coalition was recently formed to raise the voices of those concerned with the aggregate effects of unconstrained high electrical demand facility proliferation. Common sense legislation at the state level is necessary to ensure local governments act responsibly and adjacent jurisdictions are protected from the short-sighted decisions that ignore adverse effects beyond their borders. In a real example, Prince William County did not adequately consider the detrimental effects several large data center developments would have on the water quality downstream in Fairfax County, the city of Alexandria, and Fort Belvoir. Responsible data center siting and environmental stewardship is essential if we are to live in harmony with these necessary industrial facilities. So I urge your support of SB 289. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand.
Hello, I'm Roger Yackel from Gainesville, Virginia. I'm also an official of the HOA Roundtable, which has over 150,000 rooftops in Northern Virginia. I have also worked in the chemical industry for close to 50 years, and at one point was leading the health, safety, and environmental function. I do support Bill 289, as it'll set minimum technical standards and procedures for stormwater management. To provide protection from stormwater runoff, it requires a good design of a facility, but it also requires a cycle of steps: design, construction to meet the design standards, proper inspections, maintenance practices, and lastly, tracking and reporting. This is what we do in industry to maintain performance. This will ensure that watershed facilities will provide protection over the long term.
Okay.
Why should anyone oppose this bill? In talking with 4 experts, one from Fairfax Water, one from the Occoquan Monitoring Labs, they all agree that these steps are critical to maintaining
Yes, sir.
stormwater
We're sending, we're sending a number of these data center related bills, environmental bills, to the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee for a study on all of them. And this is something Senator Rome, I advised her of. And with that, I thank you for your testimony.
You're very
and
welcome.
if we could, if I could have a motion to.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I will second the motion. The motion was that this be re-referred to JLARC, and I think JLARC
Carried over for the year.
is going to give us a report.
Yeah, carried over for the year to refer to the JLARC study.
And the bill will be carried over. So thank you for bringing this forward. It's a really important issue. Thank you to those from Prince William County who traveled all this way to talk to us.
And thank you very much. So the matter before us is to carry the bill over till next year to refer to the JLARC study, which is the intent of a number of other data center bills that have been introduced this year. So we have a motion and a second. The clerk will open the roll.
Mr. Chairman, can I just briefly ask the chair, I'd ask the chair to ask, is that what the patron wants?
Mr. Chair, I would tell the senator that I would love for this bill to pass this year, and at the same time, I also understand what the will of the committee is, and I can count votes.
Yeah, it is. And Senator Suderline, we're trying to treat all of these bills the same way. We think it's important that they get in front of JLARC, one of the most trusted evaluative groups here in the Commonwealth, to take a look at these matters. And we don't want to deal with everything in an ad hoc way. That's not the way we do business here. So I think it's important that we get it there. And I spoke to Senator Rome earlier on the matter. And of course, we all like our bills passed, but I think this is in the best interest of public policy. So would the clerk please open the roll? All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Senator Hackworth for.
There you go.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Ayes 10, noes 5. The bill will be continued on to next year. It's still alive. It can be voted on at some point in time by the committee, but let's have JLARC have a look at it and move forward on data center and environmental issues created by them in a uniform fashion and come up with really good public policy. But Senator Rome, thank you so much for your time and for your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right. Do we have any other non-committee members in the audience who need their bill heard?
Mr. Chairman, as a housekeeping matter, if you want to re-refer, I guess you can do this on your own without any motion, but did you want to refer Senator Boysko's bills to?
I already did that,
okay.
Senator Favola, at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
So we're good there. So at this point in time, we have member bills to consider, And Senator Stewart,
Yes,
you had a bill.
Okay. Is that 446?
Yes. Senate Bill 446.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 446, very lengthy bill, and it deals with the consolidation of the air, water, and waste boards. I'm not going to take you through the bill, but I've got a request.
Yes, sir.
I'd ask that you all carry that over for the year. We've had a lot of discussion and collaboration between the various stakeholders, and quite frankly, I think we need more time to get all these folks in the room to work on this and see if there is a path forward or not. And there may not be, but there may be. I think everybody agrees that we could potentially find some better ways to do this that would serve the public better and specifically protect our natural resources. And so that's what I'd like to do. And I've talked with the stakeholders. I think everybody's in agreement with that we would like to be able to do that in the off season. And if we come up with something, when you carry a bill over for the year, the committee can take an affirmative vote to act on it if we find something. And
Senator Stewart, would it require a chairman's letter to get the
No,
review
we
started,
can-
or the stakeholders are already willing to work together?
all the stakeholders are willing to work with each other, and we will include everyone in that.
Okay, thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stewart. Do we have a motion to comply with the senator's wishes? Senator Favola?
Yeah, I move that we carry over Senate Bill 446 until 2025.
The motion is to carry the bill over until 2025.
Yeah.
And we have a second? We have a motion and a second. The bill is before us. Clerk will open the roll. All those in favor of the bill, please record your vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Okay, the bill is carried over until next year.
Ayes 15,
Senator
no
Stewart,
zero.
I believe you have Senate Bill 581 also.
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Senate Bill 581. So, Mr. Chairman, give you just a brief bit of background and tell you what this bill does. I represent big area in the Eastern Virginia groundwater management area, and a lot of you all are familiar with it. Some of the new folks may not be, but it affects a large swath of Virginia. And what we're seeing on the eastern shore, Hampton Roads, coming on up Northern Neck, even in the Alexandria, Fairfax area, is a shortage of water in the Potomac Aquifer, and that's not new. We've been experiencing that. The Hampton Roads area, actually, we've got saltwater infiltration coming in, and it's causing a big problem. Likewise, we've been experiencing droughts, certainly in my part of the world, and this last year, it was reported by folks that in the Fredericksburg area, the water in the Rappahannock River was so low you could walk across it without getting your feet wet, and that's pretty scary. And so we have competing uses. In King George County, we've been told that we are soon going to have to move off of the aquifer and look at other sources to get our drinking water for the citizens. And so you have Caroline competing for it, King George competing with it, for it, Fredericksburg. There are a lot of competing people who need this. And I was astonished in talking to some of the folks at DEQ. The way we do our permitting system is you get a permit for 15 or 20 years, and then the next person has to wait. It's a first come, first served basis. And they're not allowed to use the information essentially that's available out there. And so all this bill says is, and you'll see it in two spots, beginning on line 20, the board that's the water board, is authorized to utilize and incorporate comprehensive groundwater, surface water, and aquifer data in its permit decision. Such data may include information relating to water level, flow rates, and water quantity. Now, you would think that we were doing that already, and I was really surprised to find out that we were not. And so we've always had a lot of water in Virginia. We are not finding that to be the case now, and it's time that we get ahead of this for our citizens, because we're going to have to rely more on withdrawals, I believe, from surface water than aquifers, and it presents real challenges. You would look, and I use the Rappahannock because it's a river I'm most familiar with, that I live near, or the Potomac for that matter. Up in your way, Mr. Chairman, they draw from the Occoquan. They've got to put withdrawals, they've got to put water back in to counterbalance it because the withdrawals were so significant. Where I am, if you draw too much out of the Rappahannock, then you start sucking the salt water up the river, which causes a salinization problem, and then the farmers can't use it. And so we've got challenges. I'm not saying the sky's falling today, but I want to get ahead of this, and I want DEQ to have the information and the tools necessary, because what I don't want to happen on any of our watches is citizens not be able to get drinking water, because that would be a monumental failure on our part. So that's the bill.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Any questions from the committee? Questions from the committee? All right. Director Rolban, any comments you would like to make that you're authorized to share?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
He already knows the answer. We have no position at this time. I am allowed to answer technical questions. I've had a lot of discussions with the senator, and he's correct. We have a lot of issues that have to be worked through. We are starting April 1st a new version of VA Hydro to be able to collect the water data better, and we've already agreed to have a stakeholders meeting with all the major water providers in the state, because there's a big issue that goes back to 1989 as to grandfathered water withdrawals. And if everyone took all the grandfather's waters, there wouldn't be any water left. So we have to figure out how to allocate these resources in a fair manner to continue living the way we live. So we're willing to work with everybody involved and the senator to figure this out.
Thank you so much, Director Rolban. And it seems to me that obtaining relevant data in making decisions in all aspects of public policy is a good idea. Thank you, Director Rolban. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chair, Steve Carter Lovejoy with the Virginia Sierra Club, and we support this bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jay Ford with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We also support this bill for all the reasons Senator Stewart offered, as well as some of the comments from Director Rolband. We would add that in the face of increasing impacts from climate change, these droughty conditions followed by higher intensity rainfall events are putting an additional stressor on the ability for our aquifers to reabsorb water. And so we view this as a precautionary approach to make sure that Virginia starts taking steps to modernize its Groundwater Management Act. Thank you.
Jay, could you add, maybe this isn't you're the correct person to ask this, but if you withdraw water above what's called the fall line, if you will, where salt water does not, normally intrude, can excessive water withdrawals above that point in the Potomac, for instance, it's Little Falls, anything above that, you don't see, salt water and what have you. So would that withdrawing water above that line, would that not lead to incursion?
That is above my pay grade, Senator. I would happily turn to Director Rolband, who loves questions like that.
Right? The question against Director Rolband is it safer to withdraw water above that the line that normally does not allow saltwater incursion?
Well, the scientific answer is it depends. but seriously, there is an effect no matter where you're withdrawing the water. And in the Potomac, we are in the midst of, since I've been here, they started a couple years beforehand negotiating a low water allocation agreement between the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. And it's still ongoing. We thought we had an agreement. So it's an issue everywhere. But if you take the water out of there, it means there's less fresh water going downstream, which allows saltwater inclusion or incursion in the tidal section.
Okay, thank you so much. Next.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Brent Huntsinger, Friends of the Rappahannock, we're in support of 581. We agree that we need to make sure that DEQ has the ability to use all the readily available data to them to make proper permitting decisions. And we hope that you'll support this bill.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Nathan Thompson, James River Association, we're likewise in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Pat Calvert, Virginia Conservation Network, also in support of this bill. Thank you.
All right, Senator Stewart, you have a fan club. Is there anyone here in opposition to the bill?
If anyone online would like to speak in
your fan
opposition,
club.
please raise your hand.
I hope I got one on the committee.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
Hold on one second. Is there anyone online?
Mr. Chair, there is no one online at this time.
Then I move to
Okay.
report the bill. I
Oh.
don't think there's a fiscal, is there a fiscal? There is, okay, move
There's
to
a
report
fiscal,
and refer to
yeah,
finance.
yes. And so the motion would be to report and refer to finance. All right, that's
I
the
don't
motion.
think there's a fiscal impact, is it?
Motion is to report and refer to
Finance.
finance. Do we have a second? We have a second. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? And please vote aye if you're in favor, nay if you're opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members.
And
14, no
you have
zero.
fans on the committee as well, Senator Stewart. All right, 14 yeas, nay 0. All right. Senator Stewart, that deals. Are there any other members who would like to step up to the mic who have a bill before us today? Senator Hackworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify,
Senator Hackworth?
Senate Bill 562 was,
Turn your attention to Senate Bill 562.
that was passed by for the week, is that correct?
562.
I think that was in the list. but-
What we would like to do, Senator Hackworth, to save some time, is to carry this bill over and have it go to the soon-to-be developed, in the process of being developed, CEUR, the utility regulatory group that has been created under Virginia law. We'd like to do that. I've had that request, and
Okay, now,
if,
was that?
if you're okay with that,
Mr.
and
Chairman.
with your other bill as well.
Mr. Chairman, I heard a story from Ed Willie one time that he had a special committee like this that would only meet like when everyone was gone. Is this going to the 16th floor of this building? Is that what you're doing to it?
No, sir, that committee that you're referring to is called Inland Waterways and Canals, hasn't met since 1867. But in this case, I think we could save the committee some time, Senator Hackworth, and if you could just briefly describe both of your bills that deal with regulation of utilities, because I understand even on your coal bed methane, there's some interest in using that to create electricity. So we would like to refer these to the CEUR, and if you could just very quickly describe both of them, and then we'll take a motion.
Okay, I think we'd asked to, I'm sorry. We had somebody that was coming next week to speak on the methane, but you want to take it up today?
It is, yeah, if you could just describe it quickly, because
sure.
Regardless of that information, I think it's the intent to take it and have it looked at by the CEUR, which is the proper place to vet something this complicated.
And we call that the sewer, is that correct?
What's that, sir?
The sewer, is that what that's, the CE what now?
The CEUR.
No,
which
it's
is the
really,
new
it's
Regulatory
it's really the
Commission
C,
for Energy.
It's the CUL8R.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay. All right, sure. So let's go ahead and take up SB 562. So what this does is this creates a pilot program for the use of non-combusting technology that generates electricity using coal mine methane. And of course, last year, we had a bill that passed through that actually studied this, and it's defined in statute as the methane gas captured and produced from underground gob area associated with mined-out coal seam that would otherwise escape in the atmosphere. And so we talked about how that some companies flare that, and that if we can capture this, we can use that to generate electricity, which I think everybody would like to do. So that is what, in essence, this Senate Bill 562, and it would establish a pilot program that would do that. So.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that explanation, Senator Hackworth. And we're what I'd like to propose is Senator Subramaniam, could you have us a motion to carry the bill over and refer it to the CEUR?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right. We have a motion and a second to carry the bill over and have it go to the new CEUR commission. Could you open the roll, please? All those in favor vote aye. Opposed, nay. All right.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Ayes 14, no nays 1. The bill is carried over and referred to the new commission that will be dealing with utility-related matters. And it's an intriguing prospect, so we'll see what how you fare with those folks, and we look forward to hearing the bill next year.
Okay.
And your second bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Senate Bill 557. And this classifies nuclear energy and zero-emission hydrogen as a RPS eligible resource. And many of us know that nuclear and hydrogen is already on the list for clean energy, and in the federal standard, it's qualified as clean energy. And so what this bill would do would add nuclear energy and zero-emission hydrogen to the list of renewable portfolio standard qualified resources for the purpose of achieving zero carbon emissions as required by VCEA. And currently, it's possible to build new nuclear and hydrogen generation under the current RPS framework, but no new facilities would not count toward Virginia's progress to net carbon emissions. And we would just like for that to be classified as nuclear be classified and zero emission hydrogen, and that's what this bill does.
Thank you very much, and it's an important matter for discussion. And I think it's a number of these bills that deal with utilities and the creation of electricity need to be reviewed by this new organization. I understand they've not off to a roaring start. They've put out an advertisement for a director, only got one application. So, but hopefully, within a very short period of time, they will have a director on place. I believe there's enough money for 6 staff members and who will review these matters and provide us with expert advice. So the motion would be to carry the bill over for the year and refer to the CEUR.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second to carry the bill over and have it referred to the CEUR. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? All right. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
Ayes 12, no 2. The bill is carried over for the year and to be referred to the CEUR for their study. I believe we just have one bill left, and we've saved the best for last. Oh, you do have one more. I'm sorry, Senator Hackworth. Let's go ahead and hear that.
A wise person said, be like the Titanic, go down quickly. So I'm hoping I've already went down quickly. The last one I have today is Senate Bill 663, and this is dealing with the Board of Veterinary Medicine and Satellite Offices. This actually directs the Board of Veterinary Medicine to regulate, inspect, and register all satellite offices where veterinary medicine is practiced, and adopt emergency regulations to create a DEA satellite restoration. What is happening, Mr. Chair, is you have veterinarians, large veterinarians that are called out to help on farms or whatever, and they may be 2 or 3 hours away from their brick and mortar location. And current law makes them requires them to take their medicine, their drugs and stuff back. And so this will particularly help the rural vets who may have to drive long distance between their brick and mortar offices and their clients on farms. It will allow veterinarians to receive drug stocks at home-based address and attach their daily drug logs to their vehicle. I think I have Sharon here to speak more particularly on this matter, if you would, Mr. Chair.
Please come up, introduce yourself. And
good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Susan Seward with the Virginia Veterinary Medical Association. And yes, the bottom line is the veterinary practice models have changed. And we are having an increasing number of purely ambulatory practices. That is, we've got stationary and ambulatory. Fully a fourth of our practices right now are ambulatory practices. What has happened, the current DEA registration has not kept up with our model. The Board of Vet Medicine has been in conversations with DEA over the past year of how we better address these, what we are calling satellite locations. So we will be calling this registration a satellite registration, and the board, through its powers in the Veterinary Practice Act, will be writing detailed regulations on how we handle ambulatory practices not attached to a stationary facility, and that will enable those kinds of practitioners to, as Senator Hackworth alluded to, keep drugs on their truck. Because right now, if you're attached to a stationary practice, your truck goes in, you check out your drugs for the day, you return the stock at the end of the day. If you happen to have an emergency and you're the vet on call that night, to really be totally adherent to the current regs, you've got to go before that emergency back to the clinic and check out your drug stock to get to that horse colic at 2 a.m. And certainly in particularly a large animal emergency, time is critical. So it really is a cleanup bill to just kind of conform current practice to DEA registration. They are supportive of this approach, and the board has worked this out with them. So,
all right. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Seward or the patron from the committee? All right. At this time, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand.
Jim Riddell with the Virginia Cattlemen's Association. Our large animal veterinarians are critical to the beef and the dairy business here in Virginia, and we support this effort, support this completely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, Jake Tabor, Virginia Farm Bureau. We support this bill.
Thank you. Hi.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Heidi Hertz with the Virginia Agribusiness Council, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so at this time, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the bill?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand.
Anyone online?
Mr. Chair, there's no one online at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, the bill is before us. We operate on a motion.
Mr. Chair, move to report.
Yes, got it. And the motion would be to report and refer to finance. So moved. We have a second. All right, the bill as a first and a second, it is before us. All those in favor of the motion record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk, would you open the roll? All right.
Ayes 15, no 0.
We have 15 yeas and 0 nays. The bill reports. Senator Stanley, I believe you have a bill for us?
I do. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I have SB 17, and I have an amendment in the nature of a substitute which needs to be distributed.
All right. Senator Stanley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the committee, Senate Bill 17 in its original form was to try to address a concern that we have in the motorsports industry. We have 14 historic racetracks throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia where racing had its start, which later became NASCAR. We have some of the greatest race car drivers ever to come out of Virginia, including but not limited to one of my favorites, Wendell Scott, who is the Jackie Robinson of NASCAR, my personal hero, my dad's favorite driver, an independent that raced on all of these tracks throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. What we're seeing, though, is economically we're losing these tracks, and this is grassroots racing, and it really makes a difference. So I was trying to create enterprise zones and historic landmarks, try to give them incentivization to keep them as they are. But what I have now is a substitute, and I'd yes, thank you.
We have a motion to accept the substitute in a second.
Second.
All in favor of the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Excuse me. All right, the substitute is before us.
I had one of the most brilliant lobbyists that we have here in the General Assembly come to me and point out my difficulties with perhaps some of my bill. I also had the Historical Society, which tracked me down and made sure that they knew that they absolutely hated my bill. And the Historical Society is a scary, scary department in the government. And so, understanding this lobbyist understood what I was trying to accomplish and brilliantly put together a way to try to get our localities to recognize the needs of these local tracks and to create an incentivization program where these could address the economic conditions within these tracks itself, which would allow our localities to create incentives for all of the tracks that would be in these areas, and they would be racetracks as defined in 58-140-30. And those incentives that the local governments can provide them would be the reduction of permit fees, user fees, reduction of business, professional, occupational license taxes, partial exemptions from taxation of substantially rehabilitated real estate, and other things to that extent, so long as they conform to the requirements of the Constitution of Virginia. Local incentives may also include regulatory flexibilities for special zoning districts, which kind of hit to the enterprise zones that we were talking about, permit process reform, exemptions from local ordinances, and any other incentive that are binding or would be helpful to the track and binding on the locality. So what this does is try to get our localities to understand the values of these short tracks in their areas. These short tracks are in Franklin County, in South Boston, Virginia. We've got them in Langley. We've got them pretty much all over the place. Spotsylvania's got one. Yeah. So what we're trying to do is create a partnership, public-private partnership between these tracks and the localities to increase the ability of grassroots racing to occur and to save the sport that was actually started here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, right around my area. They weren't driving around a racetrack. They were driving moonshine from here to North Carolina. So that has now become NASCAR, and I think it's important to save our tracks. And this is one way to do it. And I thank the lobbyists who helped me, because I didn't have this original thought myself. Original thought? I've never had an original thought.
All right. I believe we have a question from Senator Perry.
Senator Perry / Hashmi. Mr. Chairman, question for Senator Stanley. Senator Stanley, I think the previous bill, when I was reviewing my docket, I think it's been up twice now. And it was moving, I think, as you mentioned, to modify 10.1 and 59.1. I'm looking over the amendment that's before me right now, and it looks like you did sit down. There were some conversations that were had that changed sort of how you're attempting to look at this. I'll ask if, when I look at this bill, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that this committee is actually the appropriate committee to hear this bill. This looks more almost like a local government kind of bill. It addresses things like reduction of business and professional occupation license taxes and things like that seem better suited for that committee.
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator by saying I don't disagree with you. If you go to one of our local tracks, you'll see it's usually in the middle of a farm field. They are in rural areas. By changing the incentivization of enterprise zones and historic markers, clearly this is a little different. It has the same flavor, and what we're trying to do is incentivize these tracks to keep them going and to keep them prosperous and to keep that sport at the grassroots level going. But I understand what the senator is saying, Mr. Chairman. If another committee should take a look at this, that might be appropriate. Otherwise, I move to report. I'm kidding.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
There you go. All right.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Senator Hackworth.
Question for the patron, Mr. Chair. And I mean no harm to the bill, but just as a question, Senator Stanley, sometimes when you designate historic landmarks, there is limited improvements that you can do to these. Has that been discussed? And I would just hate for, if they wanted to maybe do some paving or they wanted to do some upgrades, that it would fall into some sort of catch-22 to where they would not be able to upgrade these and modernize them. Do you have an answer for that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd answer the senator by saying that's exactly why we kind of changed it. Was even advised by the lobbyists who collaborated with me on this, that there are a limited number of enterprise zones that are vested that we have in Virginia, and we've probably exceeded those, so that would make that very difficult. Historic landmarks also in the Historical Society said, well, you know what, Richmond International Raceway, a historic racetrack's been around since the early 50s, would not qualify. And I said, why? And it's because it would have to be in its original form in 1950, which had guardrails and a small stands like you'd see in a high school football stadium. And now it has large stands that have been improved, even though the track itself has been repaved, but is in the same shape and form. So that's why we kind of decided that this needed to be more, how do we create incentives without crossing into these, does this qualify, does this not? Do we have enough enterprise zones? Do we not? And I think this does it, encapsulates what I was trying to do, inartfully so, and now have fixed, hopefully. So.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Did you have an additional comment?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, I would just say, and I think for purposes of clarification to Senator Hackworth, we're not in Section 10.1 anymore, so we're not dealing with historic landmarks. I think that's exactly my point I was trying to make earlier. This new bill, the amendment, is just 59.1, talks about local incentives, may include reduction of permit fees, reduction of user fees, reduction of business, professional, and occupation license taxes, and other things like that. I'm not sure this is the committee to hear it, so I would move that this be passed over to
I believe this bill, if reported out of this committee, would be headed to Finance. But she brings up a good point in terms of the Committee of Original Jurisdiction here, Senator Stanley, and I would think that we would want VML and VACO in the room on this one because it is, it involves local decision making and what have you. So I was wondering if you might amend your bill to re-refer to local government, and they can send it on to Finance from there, because I like your bill, but I think she brings up a good point.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that we have two of the former chairmen of local government right here, which is good enough. No, I'll make a motion to refer it to the local government.
To re-refer the motion, do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to re-refer Senator Stanley's Senate Bill 17 to local government, and also the need to advise them that if passed in that body, it would need to go to Finance. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll? Vote aye if you're in favor, nay if you're opposed.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill is re-referred to local government. Thank you, Senator Perry, for your astute observation and very alert. And at any rate, I believe we have one bill left. It's mine. Senator Stewart, would you please assume the chairmanship here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Take over.
No, you don't want to be here. You want to be in Congress.
Okay, Senate Bill 455.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. A number of years ago, I think it's 4 years ago now, Delegate Bulla and I introduced legislation to come up with a wildlife corridors plan here in the Commonwealth for VDOT and what's now wildlife. Back then it was inland games and fisheries, to come up with a plan, which it took them several years to do, but they did it. And so we now have a plan as to how to approach these problems, as to what we do with wildlife corridors. And for those of you who have not heard this before, wildlife corridors are sort of engineering feats and of sometimes common sense and sometimes unique methodologies to get wildlife across a highway. To get them from one place to another so they can breed, find food, and stay away from being hit by our vehicles. And just some information very quickly here that I have. Virginia drivers crashed into wild creatures crossing roadways 81,694 times in 2022. Virginia is the 9th highest risk state for animal vehicle collisions in the U.S. 4 people died and over 500 were injured. Colliding with deer in Virginia in 2022, there were 6,100 deer vehicle collisions, and each deer collision cost an estimated $41,000. Deer vehicle collisions in Virginia alone cost at least $250 million a year. Black bear collisions are on the rise. It is estimated that 1,100 to 1,300 bear collisions occur yearly in the Commonwealth. Elk vehicle collisions are also on the increase, and those estimated costs are up to $80,000. It's property damage, it's human life, and the wildlife corridors, to be able to, what this bill does is enable us to establish a fund by which to pay for these projects. And they can be paid for through appropriations from the General Assembly or from private donations. And we have had our first federal grant where we didn't have to put any state money into it. We've had a federal grant that has actually paid for one of these crossings. The most successful has been on I-64 over on this side of Afton Mountain, where they've reduced animal vehicle collisions by 98%. All they did was put up fencing to direct animals underneath the highway so that they could cross without risk of injury. When I presented the bill in House Agriculture several years ago, the chairman of the committee had 2 vehicles in the shop for deer hits. It's a huge, huge problem. And all we're doing here, and I have a budget amendment, and I have no idea what Senate Finance will ultimately do to put in, if this bill passes, how much they would put into it, but I've asked for $2 million so that we can at least get 1 or 2 projects up and running. And in dealing with the national network that I've dealt with, that Congressman Beyer introduced me to, they have some suggested places where that money might be put to the best possible use. It may seem like an ocean trying to empty the ocean in a bucket, but there are some high contact areas. We're protecting human life, property value, and insurance rates that impact all Virginians. And I think getting this fund going so that at the proper time, when House Appropriations and Senate Finance determine to put money into this, it can hopefully be augmented by some private donations for people who want something done in their areas. And so that's what the bill does. It creates the Wildlife Corridors Fund. It's passed out of here before. It's passed out of the House. It seems to run into problems with the Appropriations and Senate Finance committees in their processes. But I think this is a good year to move forward with it, and so I ask that the bill pass. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks,
Any
Senator
questions?
Marsden. And I know you've worked on this for quite a few years, and it is important because we all see it as we drive up and down the road and the problems. Any questions of Senator Marsden, members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman, before I do that, we did have a line amendments to the bill. Could the clerk please report?
That line amendment, please.
Line 29, after C, strike at least one representative from each of, insert, the Director of Wildlife Resources shall administer the fund and in consultation with. And then line 29, after shall, strike collaborate to.
Is there a motion on those amendments? Motion properly seconded to adopt the amendments. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senator French, you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Morris, I just like to note that on that 64 where we've built that fence, I think it's a good bill. But I fear one thing that's happening is we've limited our ability to maintain our right-of-way, and that now we're getting trees and stuff that are growing up there, and now when they fall, they are going to make it to the travel lanes of 64. I think somehow or another we need to address that a little bit. That's all I want to say.
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, I'm hoping that as we establish this fund and move this project down the road, that repair work can become part of it doesn't do any good to keep creating these things if time takes its toll on them and they deteriorate, in some way. Out west, they do bridges over highways. We've got fishermen who, we're trying to allow fish to get upstream because they get clogged with trash and what have you, get upstream to breed. And so that's a point well taken, and I think it's something that the fund could deal with, and that's why it's important to get it going, at least have a vehicle, and we'll let the appropriations and finance folks figure out how much it's worth putting into.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Do you have anybody who'd like to speak to it? Anybody opposed to it? Their motion?
You should be. You're 100.
Motion properly seconded to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance. Was that the motion?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, did someone? I think he's in good shape, but you can come up if you want. All right, motion. The motion is to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance. Please open the roll. I mean, vote you yes.
There you go.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Martin.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that, Mr. Clerk, does that conclude the docket?
That concludes the docket, sir.
That is the docket. Thank you. That concludes the meeting.